Let's move to our first keynote panel. Warehousing and logistics, fighting the crisis on the front line. I would like to invite our panelists on stage. Umesh Madhyan, Associate Vice President Logistics, Coca-Cola. Anup Chauhan, COO, Avashya CCI. Lieutenant Colonel Vijay Nair, veteran, Vice President, Head Integrated Electronic Supply Chain at Reliance Retail, and Dr. Rakesh Singh, Chairman, Institute of Supply Chain Management. One announcement to the audience. Kindly keep posting your question throughout the panel and we will answer post the panel is over. The panel is of around 35 minutes and will have 10 to 15 minutes post that for the question answers. I would request Dr. Singh to kindly lead and take up the discussion. Thank you.
Good afternoon, friends. Yeah, I can see everybody now. Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to the first panel at the warehousing ecosystem. This panel essentially looks at the impact of COVID-19 on warehousing, on FMCGs, food and beverages, and the retail, and generalizes as the outcomes, what are the outcomes of this particular panel for future planning, for future strategies. And the sense of this is that we have another two panels who look at the future of warehousing as a strategy. There is another panel which deep dives into technology. So here is a panel which looks humbly at what happened and what are the major learnings and what they did at the point during the period of lockdowns and how they managed the whole thing and what they think are future trends. So let me start with Umesh. Umesh, you have been, talking at various forums. I think I've heard you in a big way. You have made various strategic points within the data that you have looked at during the lockdown period. So what do you think has been the learning till now? Because we know that India still is not out of lockdowns. India still is in a very uncertain environment and where we will have different scenarios unfolding, and this uncertainty is here to stay. In that sense also, what has been the learning at Hindustan Coca-Cola and your general understanding through your network about this? So we start with Umesh.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible? All good?
Yes. Yes, yes. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. It could be a little louder.
Great. So, sure. Any better now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I think a couple of learnings. The one big learning which we have from a business continuity perspective and from a sustainability perspective is that it's important for us to have a footprint which caters to the local community more from a labor and employment perspective. I think this is the biggest learning which we have, because what has happened is that all the labor, all the people who were serving us have actually gone back to their places up in UP, Bihar, and that's creating a hell lot of a problem in terms of us doing productivity and trying to meet the consumer demand. So one big learning which is you have to somehow get into more local communities which you can encourage and get into your manufacturing as well as your warehousing facilities, which will help you more from a business continuity perspective. I think that is the one big learning which we got. The other learning was that our first biggest thing, which we always keep on talking about in forums, in our boardrooms, about agility. This is exactly the time about agility, and you actually feel the pinch of to the organizations where organizations have not been working too much on this piece. So I'll just give you one example. There's a huge shift between the national key accounts kind of business, which is modern trade and e-commerce, which is shifting significantly versus the general trade. So the general trade is not moving exactly, but this kind of business is significantly moving. Now, the way you serve this business, because of lot many other rules and regulations around it, is a different catalog. You want to manage range there. You want to have a higher lead times in terms of serving that order, because it's a complicated order. It's an order which is less than a truck. You need to do a lot of multi-drop. You need to do a lot of complicated transport solutions to these kind of customers. Now, that's something which is a bigger problem which people are grappling with in terms of addressing them. So we have tried to partner with a lot of our clients, including Reliance, where we have tried to move away from a single touch to a multi-touch to ensure that they actually get a lot of service on time. Let's say Mumbai, for example, we have tried to do a lot of servicing directly to the store rather than the retail distribution center of people like Reliance or Metro or Walmart or whoever. So we have tried to partner that and try to do multi-drop solutions so that we can, try and meet and reach the outlets too earlier. So that is one big change which we feel in terms of agility, which we'll have to work upon. The third biggest benefit which we could see is our journey on transformation from a digital perspective and from an innovation perspective has paid off well. So all the paperless initiatives of digitizing signatures, of digitizing the e-way bills, etc., all of this is actually paying off, and we are getting a lot of benefits on palletization as well. So there, I think some futuristic thinking and investing right now into execution is something which people have started thinking about in all our collaboration projects on transportation and warehousing, which we are talking to other organizations. I think this is the biggest learning what they want to replicate from HCCB, from Coke, that how do we exactly have investment on solutions which pay off even in 2 to 3 years, but it still makes sense for you from a digitization and paperless perspective. So I think these are the broad 3 learnings which I would want to share at this point. Yeah.
Thank you, Umesh. I think so the first one is definitely a big learning that communities and the vulnerable segments within the business framework has to be cared for if you want to sustain and bring a business continuity plan in your business during the times of uncertainties and difficulties. I think that's a very well taken point there. Also, I think solutions, and we'll come back to that, we'll debate that a little later. Anup, you have been handling warehouses directly, and you have been handling essentials. Can you tell us the kind of uncertainties that you faced during this phase? And as Umesh brought about, what are those dynamics and what are the learnings that you have had?
So I think first of all, it's very important. I need to appreciate all the warriors of the supply chain, especially the ground team, who's been working tirelessly and, ensuring the social distancing. So thank you so much to everyone, associated around the supply chain. We are the people who are never talked much about, but then we make a larger difference to the society and economy. So thank you so much for that. Now coming on to the, problem that we had, I think every organization had the BCPs in plan. We always had the business continuity plans in position. But how many of the organization had this sort of anticipated, hurdle in mind, and how fast they would be able to come out of that is something which, very, very big question for everyone, right? So whether it is at the customer's end or whether it is the 3PL organization's end. But the good part is, I think when this problem happened, it also opened a new dimensions of thought process. And I think what Umesh also said, the speed, which is very, very important. And we've been talking about the new driving factor around any organization or supply chain company will be speed to the response and to the requirement. I think that also really got tested across the functions. So whether it was, seeking the approvals from the government authorities, whether it was government authorities who were, laying down the various norms and advisories, whether it was opening of the warehouses at a very short notice and ensuring that the social distancing is also to be adhered. And I think while doing that, I think Umesh touched on one point, that is the people. And warehousing per se right now, if you see, unlike European countries, Americas and other places, we are still highly people dependent, supply chain oriented economy. And that's the reason we don't have that large scale of automations where the people social distancing could have been maintained. With that also the issue was that yes, there were some people who had to be migrated. So it was not largely only issue of Bihar or UP or Jharkhand people, but it was also an issue that the people who were not able to allow to move between the districts. So, which means you wanted to open the warehouses for essentials, but if you had people who were coming from a different district in Maharashtra, they were finding difficult to cross. If they were in Gurgaon, they were finding difficult. So that starting challenges were there. So you had to replan all your dynamics around the people and sustain and start off the essential. Now the other dynamic which is coming, the new challenge which is coming is that you have to not only maintain the social distancing and safety at your premises, but it has to be end to end. So which means while you're importing a shipment, how a shipment will be imported, brought to the warehouse, with what safety, with what fumigations, sanitizations, while it is entering the premises, how it will be sanitized, how it will be stored. And when you're dispatching it to a manufacturing unit or to a customer or even to an end customer, what soft safety norms would be taken. And I think this is going to continue for a long time. So yes, it's a tough time, but I think it's an interesting time also because it allows you to see it from a different perspective.
Thank you, Anup. I think broad basing the migrant issues to states and this thing, I think that was a very larger dynamic of traveling 1800 kilometers, and also I thought 300, 400 was also difficult. Going back to Colonel, you have seen a very different dynamics in retail, and could you tell us what has been the changing dynamics of retail during this pandemic, and what has been your response during that period of time?
So, firstly, thank you very much for inviting me to the panel, and good afternoon, everybody. How we consider the COVID is, besides it being a great big human tragedy, it is also a catalyst maybe to ignite change. So that's the outlook we had. So lockdown took us all by surprise. We never imagined it will go for 75, 80 days as is now. And probably when we went at that time, we said 30 days, we had small quick fix solutions. But as time went by, we realized that this is going to continue. And what it would result in is, of course, we knew that some amount of labor will go away. We knew that there will be transport restrictions. We also knew that we had to upgrade technology at every level. So some things which we learned well is that I think the situation was changing quickly. Sometimes the instructions used to come that the city is locked down, 2 days later again there'll be cities opening up, and then again they'll be locked down. So one major thing which learned that we had to decentralize decision making, and we had to trust our subordinates, our regional managers and the lower level managers. And to do that, there was a great big stress on the mode of communication. So not only the mode of using a mobile, but we saw that we always had Skype and we have always had Link and Teams with us. But the way we have used it during this in this duration is nobody's business. Now we don't know how you're going to live without it tomorrow. So the use of this mass communication within the company, intra-communication, has been the biggest asset. I think that's a very big learning for us. Second is that we started preparing for the pent-up demand that is going to come up. So we passed through the AC phase, that is the March and April phase, where most of the electronic retailers make a big killing on the AC. Now we passed through this phase. Now we knew that as and when it opens, there would be a pent-up demand. It taught us on how to place our inventory correctly, how to bring it in. So we had done some advanced buying when we heard of things happening in China. We did some advanced buying, but then they may not have in the right place. How to quickly move across? How quickly are we thinking? What is the advanced planning that we are doing? Those are the kind of things. So when they say that uncertainty is the pivot of strategy, we started actually practicing this because we never knew what is going to happen tomorrow. And we started playing on what are the uncertain situations that will come up, and we started working on that. I think major learnings in a nutshell are these: use of technology, mode of communication, decentralizing of decisions, placement of inventory. Then of course, something which Umesh brought up and Anup have said, that there had to be a lot of confidence winning of the local labor population which is there, which is available. That fear of COVID was always there, but how do you reassure your team that within the warehouse you're safe? So we had gone about bringing the village panchayat team. We actually carried out lessons for them. We brought, in fact, you will be surprised that the village panchayat in the area of Mumbai brought their own decontamination vehicles and those chemicals, and they sprayed around the warehouse. That's the kind of awareness that came inside. So it was a very good learning that the more you communicate with these people, the better the attendance in your warehouses. We all faced gross attendance shortages, but the moment you boost the confidence of the people working inside the warehouse, you find that your operations quickly get to normal. That's for now.
All right. Thank you, Colonel. Umesh, I think you raised, and all of us have raised this issue of labor and managing the business continuity plan. What strategy have you all followed during this particular period? Because it is something which is unprecedented. When the labor is moving away, you may need smaller amount of labor, 30-40%. But how do you manage to retain them? What has been the policies? And I think, what do you think these policies' impact would be in future?
I think brilliant question. See, I have been saying this time and again, and I'll again repeat for the audience. Coke has been managing this. This is 134th year of Coke. So we have managed the First World War, the Second World War, and all of these. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
So we have been managing this since long now. So the strategy always is around people. So the first thing we did was, how do we ensure that the infrastructure at the manufacturing sites, at the warehousing sites, is safe enough for the employees, including the labor? So what all we need to do, there is a 150-point checklist which is being maintained, which is reported every day, every shift on your compliance, which is audited. I recently, yesterday, attended an audit from Atlanta all the way to our Gujarat facility on how exactly are we prepared for protecting the people. What all are we doing in terms of product as well as in terms of people. So I think there are some basics also which we will have to zoom in again and try to ensure that we gain expertise on the basics for taking care of people. So that is the first thing which we did, of ensuring our premises are safer enough. The second important thing which helped us was on the insurance of people, especially on COVID. So all the community, including the drivers, including the labor, including the staff of the distributor, all of these people, we tried to take a third-party insurance, which was a purely COVID insurance. Now, please understand, this is not the health insurance which we are talking about, because that's already taken care by the government. This is the insurance for them to, in case they get quarantined and they do not work for 2 to 3 to 4 weeks, what will happen to their livelihood is the question. That was the biggest fear for people to come back to their roles. So this is an insurance which gives them 2 lakh rupees in their account the day they are tested positive. So the moment they submit a positive result, they are given that insurance. So that is the second thing which we try to touch upon. And I think the third important thing, most important thing, was our methodology of TPM inside the manufacturing facilities, of having productivity from 37 to 50% of people, and still ensuring that we touch volumes. So in many plants, we would have touched close to 80 to 90% of our expected volumes because of just fag and exit of the season. And we could do that with 30 to 50% of our people. And that was a tremendous job, only because of the culture of TPM ownership, accountability, which helped us do that. So I think somewhere basics also helped us. If the basics are strong and you have that culture of productivity imbibed within the people, it becomes a lot more easier. So labor, I am not saying these are the solutions which solve the problem completely. No, not at all. There is still a lot of pain. We are still about, I would say, a ballpark upwards of 30-40% understaffed. We would still need a lot of people, but in our case specifically, it's not pinching too much as it would do to a Nestle or to a Marico or to Mondelez, because we are almost exiting season, and our season is like almost double of our quantities. So summer is just exiting, so it did not pinch us too much. But for the industry, from an industry point of view, it is still in a lot of pain, and I think it will continue for at least the next quarter, assuming the solution does not come between 6 to 9 months. So this will still continue a lot, and we'll have to still live a learning from India and outside to see how do we exactly manage this. I'm more concerned about people who are non-essentials, who took actually a break out for 2 to 3 months, who did not learn what the government is wanting you to do. Like Asian Paints, some friends in Asian Paints we talk about, they are completely not aware. They are just trying to learn on how exactly to do social distancing in warehouses. In canteens, for example, it's not easy. In buses, for getting people up country. So that pain will, I think, still remain.
Thank you, Umesh, for that simple and practical approach to bringing business continuity and bringing, human values to organization. I think I'll go with the same question with Anup. Anup has been dealing with essential commodities. He has been dealing in close to Bombay areas also. And I think they have also faced a huge labor problem that continues because the containment zones have increased in Bombay. How do you really see the continuity of labor force and what policy you intend to adopt and you have been adopting?
Yeah, I think a very valid and a very difficult question to be addressed, not only for now, but for the next 6 to 7 months continuously. Because dynamics is changing right now. There could be, spots and cities which could go into lockdown, right? So I think we cannot say it's over right now. It's still started and continue for another 6-7 months. So largely, if you see on the essential, fortunately, because we have a lot of essential warehouses, we face similar issues because there were a lot of manpower which was not able to come. But fortunately, the database that we maintain includes all the details of the people and the location and from which districts and location they are coming. And we were fast enough to capitalize on that data along with the HR team and IR teams. And immediately we moved the manpower which was in the vicinity of the essential warehouses while they were working in the non-essential warehouses because they were largely not required at that point of time. And that is how we could mobilize the manpower into the premises. But lot of challenges, frankly speaking. I think it will continue to come. Gram Panchayat people approvals to be taken, local authority approvals to be taken, police approvals to be taken. So you can imagine, Mr. Rakesh, we started off the operation within 24 hours because we also manage some of the essential commodities in plant operations. Now that was never stopped, right? That was always on. So which means you have to continue to work 3 shifts of operations. And still there are challenges. The manufacturing partner was also, bringing in their expertise. We were bringing our expertise. You have to, dwell upon the same volumes, which otherwise you would have been doing. And in fact, the volumes for these commodities had increased because the demand increased more. People were at home and, everybody was using those products. And so it was a different scenario. So it was not I'll say, a non-peak month for us. It became a peak month for us. And for that, the manpower had to be organized and given. So all these challenges have been there, but I think we've been able to come out largely. And today also, if you ask me, we have made specific zonal data from where we foresee that the people might have difficulties in future to come. And we are trying to see that, how we can support them and help them. And at the same time, we also do not depend too much on them and we try and create backups for our warehouses. And the other portion is, yes, the input of the manpower has never been 100%. It will never be 100% because the permissions given for the essentials, when it was given, it was always less than half of the percent. We started with 25%, 30%, and then largely it has been started to increase. I think again, it will continue to be the same. The reason is, even if the government gives the approval, the people confidence has to be attained, and while attaining the people confidence, I think the social distancing has to be demonstrated in all the areas of works, whether it is in plant operations, warehouses, ports, or anywhere else. So this will result into the this will result into the productivity demand. So little automations also we have started investing heavily around our customers, which is not heavy investment, but frankly speaking, it is increasing productivities. So a different outlook altogether. What little innovations can be done and what little technology can be adopted.
I think technology is one way to go forward. I think everybody agrees, and Umesh was saying that those who have invested in technology have done better. I think that is also a contention to be proved. And it's a hypothesis still, but I think we are believing in it as we move ahead. Colonel, coming back to you, huge change in consumer behavior for your kind of commodities. In a way, it has been not so important essential commodities. And still, I think I understand you all have really reached the market in appropriate way. What has been your warehousing and logistics policy? Not just labor policy, but logistics and warehousing. How have you secured logistics and warehouses at such a point of time when there has been hyper local, as Umesh said earlier, huge local demand and erratic local demands at erratic places? So how have you achieved that?
So you took the right word, calling it erratic. So what happens is that it's pockets of area that have opened, and the pockets of area had large demands, and to reach to the pockets of area was not easy. Sometimes the area in between was under restrictions, or the permissions for that area was not coming. Despite whatever we saw all throughout the lockdown, those MHA guidelines used to come. Ultimately, it boils down to that local policeman actually giving you permission to move. So our strategy has been that we actually set up a small team consisting of our security staff, our local liaison officers, and we went about securing the passes for the vehicles and the people to move. So there were a number of things told about how we are making sure that we have enough people inside the warehouse to do the part of work. Firstly, the demand was not 100%, so we didn't require 100% people. Secondly, what we did was, since there's a certain component of migrant labor, the reason migrant laborers left the place was because they couldn't sustain themselves in the place where they stay. So we made a small arrangement for people within the warehouse. We had a kind of a transport. Every warehouse got a transporter's rest house. So that was converted into a small staying area. We put about 12 people inside that. So that immediate labor is always available. We created food for them. So the logistic policy, when you say that, it started with first asking what are the kinds of articles that customers are buying. The pent-up demand was for, say, laptops. It was for headphones. It was for mobile phones. I mean, people were converting to all those articles that would help them to work from home. It was our job to make sure firstly they were available, or we did intercity movements, interstate movements, interstore movements to make it available at the point where they could be purchased by the customer. And basically, we worked on a mode where we created city warehouses, wherein we could put these products together and move it quickly to the area which was required. So wherever the demand would come from, we would do it over there. So the idea was, in this kind of a situation when the customer really cannot come to the store, how can you reach the store to the customer? And we started on those kind of strategies, wherein the supply chain places himself and makes itself flexible to have the inventory in such places close to the proximity of the customer in the in-city warehouses or stores, from there where they can quickly reach the customer by fetching the product to their homes. So earlier we had this policy of always shipping this large articles like fridge, TVs, ACs, but then we switched on to even sending mobiles, laptops, headphones to the customers by using biker force. And single rider biker was always permitted, and we used that force to actually move across the area.
That's interesting. Umesh, I think taking the question a little further, and I've started getting questions from the audience, so I thought I will also take the questions and debate together, as we have slightly been delayed. So this is from Ajit Kumar Mishra, who says that, let me simplify it. He says that Industrial Revolution 4.0 is taking place, but our logistics and warehousing is 2.0. But I think we had a very interesting chat on our WhatsApp, which says that why can't we really look beyond even technology at that point of time and look at collaboration, both horizontal and vertical collaboration with the partners to meet challenges. So what are your views? How do you think collaboration can be a very important, effective tool between user and service provider, and also between users?
Okay. So I lost your voice a little bit, but I could make out the question. So from an industry 4.0 perspective, I think there is a lot of buzz around this, that automation will become important.
Colonel, can you switch off your mic?
Automation will only... Yeah.
Colonel, can we switch off, mute your mic? Yeah, thank you. Yes, Umesh, you can go ahead.
Yeah, that helps. Okay. So from an industry 4.0, there's a lot of buzz that people will move on to a lot of automation. There will be a lot of automation because people dependency would want to go down. But I think one thing which is important, that for automation, you need money, you need cash. Cash, we will have a dearth of cash for the next 6 to 18 months, if not more. And I don't think investments are going to go huge. We had about, let's say, 2 ASRS facilities, which is completely automated. And we were planning a third one. And we are trying to do it on a more TCO or a bolt or a total cost of ownership lease model, where we are not investing money upfront. So nobody would want to invest money right now. And solutions which have been implemented already, I think those solutions will start paying off. We had a solution of a yard management control through IoT sensors. I think that kind of solution will pay off. Our yard times are better. We are able to control traffic better, but we will not be able to replicate it too much right now in terms of investments. So there are only few solutions which
Umesh, I have
will,
an
I
intervention.
think, catch a lot of.
Umesh, I have
Sorry?
a question to that. No, I have a question on that.
Yeah,
I think it is good to say that technology, leveraging it is good enough and investment cannot be. It's a fair point. But one thing that one has brought about often and heard about is that how would collaboration between a 3PL and a user company help? That was the question direction also.
sure. So
Yeah.
the 3PLs right now, I know Anup is there, but then 3PLs right now are still, I would say, in the learning phase. So there is still the throughputs which we expect the 3PLs to deliver. 3PLs are still learning. So we have tried a couple of 3PLs, but we haven't been able to crack them in terms of our capability yardstick. Marico has none of them. Asian Paints is trying 3 in 3 different geographies. Mondelez is trying 4 in 4 different geographies. So there is no one such tested 3PL, at least from an FMCG point of view. However, I would say from an electronics and from a spare part automobile and from a pharma point of view, they have done a lot of good work. And there's a lot of sense in terms of a business payback from a 3PL perspective. Having said that, there are still pockets where 3PL could help building multi-user facilities, building facilities where we could have apportioned fixed cost and make sense of us trying and getting into that facility, because it provides me the flexibility of seasonality. So if they get into more multi-user organizations which have contra seasonality, I think that would make a lot of sense. So that opportunity, I always say, is there. But there is no such 3PL who bites the bullet and says that, okay, I'm opening a 1 million square feet warehouse in Patna or in Bihar, the most complicated location in terms of due diligence, and I'm inviting people to please have multi-user facility. It is fully automated, ASRS, racking, all put together. So that still 3PLs are shying away from doing it.
Thank you. Let's. I think very well said. This horizontal collaboration is missing from the domain of logistics space today in India, and I think this is where we lose a lot of them. We move the same direction. We move so many trucks. I talked about circularity in the beginning of my lecture. I think this is one thing that we really need that adds to the carbon emission in a big way. There is a question to you from Sumit Wadhwan. Anup, it's to the whole panel, but I thought you are more appropriate. He says that warehousing will face a very important challenge of labor. Are there any ways of relocating the warehouses to the places where labor resides, rather than get labor and create such a huge density of population and pandemic outcomes? Unmute yourself. You're not being heard. Yeah, go ahead.
Can't hear you, Anup.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, there are 3 to 4 different aspects, which comes around this question. So first thing is the warehousing partner, how organized the warehousing partner is. I think one thing which has opened up, and the Pandora box has got opened up, that the organized partners have been able to respond much more faster than the non-organized partner or small partners, because of the capacities of the organization and the response and the speed that they could have delivered. But having said that, I understand from where Umesh was also coming is the supply chain companies with big overheads will still have difficulties because they'll still not fit into the FMCG sort of a module. So that is one portion. Now, coming to the warehousing, if it is rightly selected and located and is giving advantage to the 3PL partner as well as to the customers, is the right locations. Because see, COVID density is shifting across the world. So today to say that, in which state it will be where and where it will not go would be difficult. But largely, if you see, most of our warehouses are not in the congested zones. They are always on the outer periphery of the cities, which means they are away from the densities, and the chances of COVID spread in those areas are less. So, but if there are warehouses which could be the nodal warehouses very near to places where the COVID spike can be very, very high, yes, I think those could be the opportunities, and 3PL partners having multiple customer sites, or multi-customer sites, what Umesh was saying, they definitely will have an advantage over this point. On the manpower, I think, again, it's a related questions. So all the organized partners, if you see, like right now, we have 10 lakh square feet of upcoming warehouses. So 6.5 is in Faruk Nagar in Gurgaon. We have 5 lakhs in Bangalore, which is around Sokia Road. And we have in Kolkata onto the outer periphery, which is another 2 lakh square feet. These are all outer periphery. And on that, we don't have those concerns for any of our customers, and largely the people availability is also decent there. So from that perspective, I don't see that challenge. But yes, if it is within the city and we are near to the density of the COVID zones, then I think there could be definitely a requirement to look because you will not get the people. It could be always under the lockdown, and you need to move out.
Yeah, Umesh, any reaction? You raised your hand.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and Anup, completely agree with you. You perfectly replied it. I just want to add one perspective which people might miss. Productivity and savings is something which will be pressurized too much by the CFOs and CEOs right now. These are those times where people will have to deliver a lot of savings. My personal point of view is that all the good work which happened pre-COVID on GST, etc., will accelerate now. A lot of warehousing footprint will change. People will try to go direct. Single touch will improve. And there are a lot of warehouses which are, from a cost to serve perspective, getting expensive or were riskier and kept only because of the reasons of service. People and organizations might take hard calls on those and shut those warehouses and consolidate into larger, bigger warehouses. So the GST piece, which warehouse footprint consolidation started, I think will go under acceleration in H2. That's my point of view.
Oh, that's brilliant. Colonel, there's a question to you, and we are run out of time. So the question is, how did you secure the truck driver as Reliance Retail is all across the country? This is a question from Mahesh Ketan from Birla Retail. So can you let us know your answer for this? Because everybody has said
we all would love to learn.
Yeah.
All right. So firstly, the question is that we did not restrict ourselves to the limited contractors which we have. We made multiple contracts. Even we went up to securing contracts with local single owner, single truck owner people. See, all these transporters are actually hand to mouth. They're not very rich. We don't have very big Patel & companies doing the last mile delivery anywhere. There are a number of small transporters, and they're just looking for opportunity to get back into business. And when I'm talking of, because since I'm in retail, I'm more dealing with the last mile kind of thing. I'm just focusing on the last mile element. So there are people, there are drivers, there are transporters who all their desire is safety and security. And safety and security is what we try and give them. They want their incomes, they want their money. How are you going to assure them and their family that while they work for us, they're going to be safe is one of the most important aspects of how you can secure transport. We have been good at it. We have given them rations, we have given them food packets, we have carried out medical for not only them, we've given them prophylactic medicines every 21 days. There's a cycle of, I think, 21 days for this medicine which we give. So complete warehouse staff goes through survey. Families who require, we give them vehicles to take their people to hospital. We have touched all the soft sides around the person to make sure that he, I don't use the word indebted, but he feels obligated to come and work for us. I don't say that we did not have problem of vehicles, but we did not cry as hard as many others are crying. And let me tell you, we haven't increased our rates also. We haven't paid them any premium. Like Umesh said, our CFO will not let us pay any premium. We used double trips. We relaxed our SLAs a little bit. So we have been managing through those means. It is something like winning in hearts and minds to get the transport ready rather than attacking the transport itself.
Thank you, Colonel. I think we have run out our time by 7 minutes, but let us conclude this. With our hearts and mind, hope our warehousing industry and the businesses starts looking at labor with dignity, respect, and the same treatment that they have now, so that such problem of pandemic and reverse translation can stop. So I hand it over to Jaisal with a particular statement. Jaisal, up to you.
To thank all the panel members for the wonderful insights.
Sorry, we didn't have much time.
Yeah. Thank you all the panelists for the wonderful insights discussing the warehousing of social distancing to automation, from collaboration to business partners. Thank you for your wonderful insights, and I would request everyone kindly go backstage.